It's probably the most famous house in the world. Famous for the statesmen and women who have visited and lived here.
Their energy is kind of embedded in the environment.
And famous for its former residents who continue to occupy it.
The American White House is probably the most haunted house in the United States.
They're not done. They've got more to say, or they refuse to move on.
Presidents, their children, and distinguished guests have all witnessed extraordinary happenings in the executive mansion over the years.
Dog would not go into that bedroom for hell or high water.
I may come back to this White House time and again, but I am never, ever staying in this bedroom.
And it appears that one of America's most popular leaders just keeps coming back.
Every time America seems to be in trouble, Lincoln's ghost shows up.
Maybe it's a self-made purgatory.
Could the White House actually be haunted? The very question belongs in the realm of the unexplained.
Well, I hope my dad's ghost lives down there.
The White House is haunted, no question about it.
(1600 Pennsylvania Avenue), the address of America's most famous residence. The home where almost 45 presidents of the United States have lived.
There very well could be a presence in the White House of all those people that served before. It's a one of a kind.
You get such a sense of history when you're in the White House. You look at the library full of 2,500 volumes of very old, very meticulously restored books. You then see the paintings of all the presidents hanging on the wall.
Just think of all the traumas, tribulations that these presidents had, from the Revolutionary War to the Civil War to Vietnam, Korean War, World War I, World War II. That draws a lot of energy into the building, and people that put out a lot of energy sometimes have a very good chance of coming back as it goes, because their energy is kind of embedded in the environment.
And this paranormal presence in the home of presidents appears to take many forms.
Andrew Jackson, Lincoln, Washington, they abound.
A lot of first ladies, a lot of former presidents at least saw somebody in the White House.
Jefferson's here. His violin could be heard playing.
Lady Bird Johnson, the wife of President Lyndon Johnson, also said she felt the chill of the rush of cold air, and there she felt the presence of Abraham Lincoln.
When Roosevelt died, his dog Fela perks up from the couch and starts running, looking in the air, trying to paw Roosevelt's spirit. The Obamas said they would hear strange sounds on the second floor.
There's too many people. The White House is haunted, no question about it.
Could it be possible? Could the presidents of the United States still visit their old residence?
It doesn't surprise me that there would be ghosts in the White House, looking over their homes, making sure the next guy, gal gets it right.
If you imagine you're the president of a country and you have to make everything perfect in the way you want it to be, you're never going to accomplish that. It's never going to happen. So, as they pass, it makes sense that they would return with that unfinished business.
Maybe it's a self-made purgatory.
And if you were to believe Thomas Edison's theory on the concept of a ghost, it could explain why these powerful figures still linger in the White House.
The concept of ghosts is this, and this is what Thomas Edison said. Human consciousness is made up of what he called life units. Life units are discorporate. They're in a body, they're out of a body, but according to quantum physics, they would stay together. They are quantumly entangled. So the spirit of a recently departed person or a person who was very important who had a major mission to accomplish, those life units will stay together. That's what Thomas Edison wrote in his journal. The presidents, just like other world leaders, were very important people in their times. And if they had a mission to fulfill, they will come back again and again and again to remind people of that mission.
Residents and guests of the White House have long reported supernatural sightings of those who came before them. Some of these sightings can be traced all the way back to the very inception of the White House in the late 1700s.
If you're going to go all the way back to the beginning, you've got to go back to David Burns. And David Burns actually owned the land that the White House sits on now. They would hear him and he would say, "I am Mr. Burns. I gave this land so that you can have this glorious house. Don't forget me. I am Mr. Burns."
And the first residents of the White House haven't gone anywhere either.
The very first person to live in the White House was John Adams and his wife Abigail Adams.
It's been reported that the spirit of Abigail Adams is indeed very active inside the White House.
Abigail has been seen going about her business as she did back 1802.
They see Abigail Adams coming down the stairway with her hands around the wash, getting ready to hang out the wash in the East Room to dry.
Then followed by a scent of what smells like soap or damp clothes.
Abigail isn't the only First Lady whose spirit seems to live on in the White House.
The next First Lady that does haunt, and she's a little bit more of a spitfire herself, is Dolly Madison. Dolly is responsible for the roses, that beautiful rose garden outside. She planted all of that, she groomed them, that is her pride and joy. Anytime someone ever decided to touch that rose garden, Miss Dolly walked herself right up there, and she would make shovels fly across the room. She would take dirt and throw it in the gardener's face.
Even other First Ladies suffered the wrath of Dolly Madison.
Mrs. Wilson, who was the wife of Woodrow Wilson, decided one day that she was going to rearrange and redo the rose garden on the White House lawn. And all of a sudden, there was the image of Dolly Madison. And she looked at Mrs. Wilson and she said, "Don't you disturb my rose garden."
She would cause such a ruckus that they're like, "All right, we're gonna leave this rose garden exactly where it is." And it is still there as Dolly actually wanted it to be.
Another fiery spirit that still haunts the White House to this day is the 7th President of the United States.
Andrew Jackson, Old Hickory. He had lost a very contentious presidential election with John Quincy Adams, and he pretty much hated everybody who voted against him. He was very distraught, very angry at people. 4 years later, he ended up becoming president in 1828, but still had that pent-up anger. So when he died, a lot of people believe that he's still angry and been seen in the White House. In the early 1860s, Mary Todd Lincoln, the wife of Abraham Lincoln, our 16th president, she claimed to have heard somebody stomping around in the Rose Room and cursing and swearing very loudly. She believed that was Andy Jackson. We know from historical documentation that he stayed, his bedchamber was the Rose Room.
He's also in the park across the street, too. He can be heard spewing curses and shouting, stomping around.
It's claimed the most prevalent spirit is that of Abraham Lincoln.
Lincoln remaining as a spirit in the White House honestly makes the most sense to me, because he had one of the biggest impacts on our country.
Just look what Lincoln went through during the Civil War. All the death, so many hundreds of thousands of people. I think it greatly affected Lincoln to the point that he still comes back prodding what he did, what he could have done. And that's what I think draws him back to the White House.
Could this be true, or could there be another explanation?
When we talk about there being a ghost of Abraham Lincoln in the White House, you best believe it's true. He speaks to all of us.
Perhaps the most logical reason for belief that the White House is haunted is the prevalence of spiritualism in the 1800s. Psychics, clairvoyants, and other connectors with the world of the dead began to become extraordinarily influential.
People actually believed in spirits. They didn't see this as somehow an aberration or craziness. To them, just like to the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans, spirits were a part of life. Even presidents like Abraham Lincoln, who himself became a ghost, actually used spirits. After Willie Lincoln died, his youngest son died from typhus, Mary Todd Lincoln wouldn't leave the family quarters. She refused to leave the bedroom. She said, "I'm not coming down. It's this awful White House that killed my son. I don't want to be a part of it." He calls his spiritualist, his medium, his clairvoyant, Nettie Coburn, to come into the White House and hold a seance, who invokes the spirit of Willie Lincoln to say to his mother, Mary Todd Lincoln, "I'm fine, everything is fine here, please, join father."
It actually worked. According to both Mary Todd and old Abe, they would see Willie standing at the foot of their bed. He would often appear in photographs standing next to his father.
And so Lincoln was so impressed by that he began having weekly seances at the White House, inviting his cabinet, inviting friends.
But the Lincolns' increasing interest in the other world could have introduced them to more than they bargained for.
Mary Todd, ardent spiritualist, and the Red Room kind of became her lair. I would say that what she was doing in the Red Room with those seances, they all start with the best of intentions. And maybe it did bring Willie, it brought her what she wanted, but I don't know what else she opened up.
In 1865, Lincoln had a premonition of his own death.
He had a dream where he woke up in the dream and he heard a chorus of people just sobbing, moaning, and crying in the White House. So he puts on his bedrobe, goes down the stairs, and sees a flag-draped coffin in the East Room, 2 guards on either side, and a throng of people, sobbing, weeping, mournfully crying. He goes up to one of the guards and says, "Who has died in the White House?" The guard says, "The president. He was killed by an assassin's bullet." And then he wakes up.
3 days later, Lincoln was assassinated. Strange coincidence, or was there something more supernatural at play?
Even on the night Lincoln was shot, at Ford's Theater, he was supposed to be sitting in the same box with General Grant. But General Grant's wife, who was a spiritualist, said, "I have a bad feeling about this." In fact, she said, "I do not allow you to go sit in the presidential box. We're jumping on a train and we're going back to New York." And sure enough, they went back to New York. Lincoln, who had actually seen his own assassination in a dream, is shot.
Lincoln, it seems, has never left the White House.
There's actually a room in the White House called the Lincoln Room. And that Lincoln Room has been the source of many of the hauntings. Former First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt, she used that room as a study. And she said on many occasions she just felt that he was around.
Guests of Roosevelt were often visited by Lincoln, Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands being just one of them.
In the middle of the night, she hears a knock on her door, rather large rap, wondering who was there in the middle of the night. Opens the door to find the entire door frame filled with a man dressed in black, stovepipe hat and all. She said it looked like Abraham Lincoln. It was said that she fainted immediately upon seeing that.
But the funniest story came from Winston Churchill, Prime Minister Winston Churchill. Churchill was staying overnight in the Lincoln bedroom, and he said the smell of cigar smoke suddenly came out of nowhere. Well, he smoked cigars, so it didn't bother him, but he said he saw Lincoln's ghost when he opened the door standing in the corridor. And he said to President Roosevelt the next day, I may come back to this White House time and again, but I am never, ever staying in this bedroom.
Some people thought having the ghost of Lincoln around was invaluable.
Truman specifically really embraced it. He was like, I hope that President Lincoln is here because he would give me some great advice. Other members of staff were like, oh, it's an old house. It's the pipes, it's the walls, it's the wood settling. And he said, okay, rebuild it. And they did. They actually rebuilt the White House under his presidency. And guess what? It didn't go away.
And Lincoln seemed to show a particular fondness for one presidential family. The 16th president appears to roam the corridors of the executive mansion to this day. The Reagans were witnesses to his spirit.
Oh, I think there's ghosts in the White House. I think there are ghosts. And I think my dad probably believed there are ghosts also.
Ronald Reagan's daughter, Maureen Reagan, she was staying in the Lincoln bedroom. She said, I woke up one night, I smelled cigar smoke, I opened the door, there was a guy with a stovepipe hat. I told my dad, I'm never staying in the Lincoln bedroom again.
And she wasn't the only member of the family to feel a presence in the Lincoln bedroom.
Dad and Nancy had a little dog named Rex. That little dog would get out of the family quarters room at night on occasions and go down the hall to the Lincoln's bedroom and be outside the Lincoln bedroom just yapping.
And he's barking, 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 barking. So they'll open the door for him. He's not going in there. He's not going in there. In fact, he shrinks away from it.
And Dad would, a few of those occasions, what he would do is put the, leash on the dog and try to pull the dog into the Lincoln bedroom. Dog would never move. Dog would not go into that bedroom for hell or high water.
I think maybe that Rex sensed, dogs are their intuition is incredible. And I think that he sensed the stress and the sadness that does emanate from Lincoln quite often.
It is also said that Lincoln's spirit has appeared when the country is in its greatest time of need, and his is not the only spirit that has done so.
After Kennedy was assassinated in Dallas, they said Lincoln would stand at the front door, almost as though he was crying. People said they saw him at the front door. This would be visitors, even people standing outside the gates looking in.
The theory about Lincoln's ghost in the White House is this, that because Lincoln was the president who kept the Union together and who abolished slavery in the United States, because of that, every time America seems to be in trouble, Lincoln's ghost shows up. Same with George Washington. He shows up when the United States is at this inflection point with General McClellan, how to deploy your army to defend the capital. Suddenly, Washington's ghost appeared, and he says, Sentry, are you asleep at your post? McClellan was shocked. He knew exactly who it was because of the three-cornered hat, the white jacket, the plumes. And he laid out for McClellan a map of how to deploy his army. The Battle of Gettysburg. Suddenly, a figure on a white horse, robed in white, holding a sword, appears before the main volunteers and points in the direction of the town they should go to.
Could it really be possible that these presidents continued to help the country they loved, even in the afterlife?
We have in America a reverence for all of our presidents. They are our leaders. They are the people who give us moral guidance. We want ghosts to be there. We need to have ghosts in the White House because we don't want to lose those people who have been our leaders, who give us the moral authority.
I don't know if you call it a ghost or just that aura of the people who have been there and you can feel them. I mean, you walk around the room and you feel the Reagan, you feel the Obamas, you feel the people who spent 8 years there, and the things that they did and the things they accomplished, whether you agree with them or not.
You can't deny that things are going on. You can't deny the feeling you get as you walk into the East Room. You can't deny that smell of lavender as you see the maid, who's not really the maid, walk by you. Those are things that you can't deny, especially because it's happened over and over for centuries.
I believe personally that the White House is haunted. I believe that there are parts of Washington, D.C. that are still haunted. It would be really fun to get President Donald Trump to agree to let some ghost hunters go into the White House, stay in the Lincoln bedroom. That would be his best reality show. Ghost hunters in the White House.
But we can't explain it. I think that's what makes it exciting.